Got to make sure people can see you. Good morning. Y'all ready for the week? We're trying to get ready for you. We're trying to get ready. How many of y'all are coming out Friday night? Raise your hand nice and high. Good, wonderful. If you can make it, that'd be great. If you can't, tune in or rewatch it. It's going to be a great experience. It's going to be an honest experience, so I hope you can make it. Hey, if you are a guest online or in the room, welcome to a church that cares deeply for people who feel spiritually disconnected, disenfranchised, or who are deconstructing their faith. One of my favorite scholars is an older gentleman. He's close to 90 now, and I was at a conference, and he was speaking a few years ago, and he said, you know, this whole deconstruct, he's an Irish scholar, so I can't duplicate the accent, so you got to imagine an Irish accent, which is really even better. And he says, oh, you know, this whole deconstruction thing, we just call it thinking. I said, oh, yeah, it takes a brilliant person to bring it down. It's like, it's just thinking. It's all it is. Most of us grew up in a tradition that didn't like that. So there you go. But if you are here today, thank you. My name is Ryan, the lead pastor. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a white, cisgender, heterosexual man who has benefited from systems that have favored people like me. And as a follower of Jesus, I believe naming those privileges, leveraging them for others is the start of a life committed to peacemaking and justice, or what the historical Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. In a little letter in the New Testament called Philippians chapter 2 tells us that though Christ had every status, he let go of it and took the form of a servant. That's the path that we're trying to learn to walk here at Crossroads Church. So whoever you are, however you've come today, whether you are certain or skeptical, hopeful or hurting, you're welcome here. And I hope that you join us as we walk this peacemaking path together in a very imperfect way. You know? Y'all ever get mad? Yeah, I was mad this week. Holy moly. Okay, but at any rate. So we're in our final week of this series, The Shape of Hope, where we've been exploring how hope takes shape and takes form and is a process in our lives. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that there are just certain things in life that we're just not that they're hard to do by yourself, but it's absolutely ridiculous to try and do alone, right? Can you think of something in your life that you go, yeah, I shouldn't do that alone? Yet, many of us have tried to do some of these very dumb things. Certain pieces of furniture should not be moved alone. Raise your hand up nice and high if you have nearly hurt yourself moving a piece of furniture by yourself. Right? You think, I can get this couch up 2 flights of steps by myself. Not a problem whatsoever. And you get going, and then there's this moment where you're kind of halfway up, you're wedged in between the wall and the rail. You've questioned every life decision that you've made up into that moment. What is happening here? And you still think in your mind, I got it. All I need to do is just pivot, and it'll be fine, right? IKEA furniture. I think that's another thing that's not meant to be put together alone. Few weeks back, I guess it was a couple months ago, my spouse, Wendy, she decided it was time to replace a hutch that we had bought off of Facebook Marketplace. And I said, the hutch feels perfectly fine to me, but it was time to replace it. And so we ordered, which I knew I was in trouble as soon as that happened, we ordered a hutch. And the hutch came in a box. And I immediately thought to myself, this is going to be a problem. Because I'm in the humanities. Right? Like, filling my car up with gas is a bit of a challenge for me. Right? I can do nothing mechanical. And so open this up, and literally the whole kitchen had pieces and parts all over it. And I thought, I can do this by myself, you know. The terrible choice, super humbling, 150,000 screws, 17 pieces. I ended up with a chair and a desk, but no hutch. I'm not sure how it happened, but I was like, here's your chest. It's a chair and a desk all together, and we can set our dishes on it, and it'll be wonderful. I did actually get it put together, and she liked it so much, ordered a second one. True story. Right. Not meant to be done alone. Groceries. Anybody ever try carrying all the groceries at one time? Get out. Partner's like, I can help with the groceries. Like, I got it. Halfway to the door, keys in your mouth. You can't feel your fingers. all the circulation is cut off to every extremity because you think, I got this. Not meant to carry it alone. You're opening the door like you're a rabid raccoon trying to get into the house, can't get the door knot. It's a disaster in and of itself, right? And in that, we just like regret, why didn't I ask for help? We have these kind of funny things, right, that we try to do on our own, and we get halfway through and we're like, what are we doing? These are just too hard. I shouldn't be doing this alone. In fact, it's not just too hard, it's just impossible. But there are things in our lives that aren't so funny, but we just can't do alone, right? Like you can't perform surgery on yourself. You shouldn't do that, okay? Don't do that. You can't give yourself CPR. Think about it. Just can't, it's impossible. You generally can't teach yourself to swim. That's a tricky one. I mean, you could try, but it's risky. It's risky, right? At some point, you and I, we need someone else in the story. And yet, when it comes to something like hope, we try to go it alone. When it comes to something like hope in our lives, we think things like, well, you know what? I'll just figure it out. We're in a difficult situation. We're starting to feel our hope wane a little bit. But I got that. I'll figure it out. I don't want to be a burden to anyone. Has anybody ever felt the way? Some of us know people that have never had that thought, and we're like, you should have that thought. You should think, I don't want to be a burden. Like, let's try that one once in your life, right? But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about kind of the unhealthier side of that, where never have asked for help, or I just don't want to be a burden to anybody. Or the comparative suffering line. We do this a lot. Other people have it much worse. Other people have it much worse. I just need to be stronger. Right? These are the things that we say when we think, I can just do this on my own. I can bear this burden of hope by myself. And without even realizing it, we just start carrying these things by ourselves that we were actually never meant to carry alone. And if we're honest, there are reasons why we do it. And they're not particularly wonderful reasons. Sometimes it's pride, right? I should be able to do this by myself. I shouldn't need other people. For whatever reason, that gets into our system. Sometimes it's fear. What if I let somebody know that I need help and they don't show up? What if I let somebody know and then they know that I can't do it on my own? Maybe their idea of me will be tarnished. Maybe they think I'm supposed to be some like superhero. Sometimes it's shame. Gosh, if this person really knew what I was dealing with, if this person really knew that I was struggling in my relationship, or if these people really knew that I was having a difficulty in my finance, or these people knew that I was really scared about the diagnosis, or if these people knew that I was nervous about my kids, or that I needed help, like what would they think? And we kind of let shame overwhelm us. Sometimes it's kind of just what we've been taught. I don't know if you know it or not, but we live in a culture that says you should be independent, self-sufficient. You shouldn't need anyone. But when independence is taken too far, it can easily become isolation. Right? There's a fine line between independence and isolation. And it's in isolation where hope, right, as it becomes a burden that it can be. Hope can be a burden. As it starts to weigh us down, trying to have hope, it will slowly erode out of our lives. And if we try to keep going it alone in those moments, if we try to like live out this, I can do it all by myself, right? There's some things that take place when isolation and hope start to overwhelm us, and there's this erosion. We're going to burn out much faster than we ever thought because we're trying to do it all by ourselves. Right? Small problems start to feel overwhelming. Right? You ever had the big giant problem and then the little tiny problem shows up and your response to the little tiny problem is way bigger than your response to the giant huge problem? We call that kicking the dog. Right? Something big happens and you walk inside, and we'll call it kick the cat. I feel better about that analogy, but I'm more of a dog person, but let's not kick anything. It's just a little humor. Right? That's what we do. We overreact when we should be reacting more in that moment. And all of a sudden, reality gets distorted, and something really powerful happens, and that is that we lose our ability to imagine anything different. And if you were here last week, You heard Aisha share with us about how important imagining alternative futures was. And when we start to go at it alone, that imagination becomes very, very hard, becomes very, very difficult. And eventually, we don't just lose hope, we start to believe that hope was never possible in the first place. Because what feels unbearable alone, right? Because what feels so difficult alone can actually feel bearable in community. But the more we isolate ourselves, the more that lie will start to overwhelm that reality. And if we never let anyone in, if we don't ever let someone help us carry that weight, we just cut ourselves off from the very thing that could multiply what we want, what we have. We might have a little bit of hope, but without bringing someone in community with us, without bringing people in us to carry that burden, to help build that hope, right? Maybe the big question when it comes to our feelings of hope that are fading, maybe the big question isn't, do I have enough hope for this moment? Maybe the better question is, what happens if or when I have placed in the hands of community my burdens? What happens when what I have is given in community? What could take place? And we see this powerfully demonstrated in a story in the Gospels, the story of the feeding of the 5,000. How many have ever heard this story, the feeding of the 5,000, right? So I want to talk about this story for a little bit. In this story, we see very powerfully what can happen when a community comes together and the miracle that can take place. So there's a lot of wisdom that's given to us, right? So here's what it says. It says in Mark chapter 6, verse 34 through 44, that as he went ashore, this is Jesus, he saw a great crowd and he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. I want to pause here. I want to bring up some of this I think really fascinating. We see in Jesus that compassion brought him to a place of responsibility, right? Compassion brought Jesus to this place of feeling responsible. Now, I get it that there's a lot out there that says boundaries, right? How many have ever heard or read or talked about or thought, I need to have better boundaries? Raise your hand up nice and high. That is true. And it is true that when we are people of compassion, following the peacemaking path of Jesus, that compassion leads us to a sense of responsibility. Not when we're talking about others' irresponsibility, but when we're talking about the oppression and the injustice in our world. And so Jesus looks and he sees a group of people that are excluded, that the dominant structures of his culture, of his world, of his religion have left outside. And he has this deep sense of compassion. And so he feels like a shepherd. He feels like he needs to be a shepherd, which is one who is responsible for the well-being and the welfare of the sheep. And so he looks and he's filled with compassion. He says, okay, I got to do something. And the story goes on, it says, when it grew late, his disciples came to him and they said, this is a deserted place. The hour is now very late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy something for themselves to eat. Now notice two separate viewpoints. Jesus has compassion on the crowd. He sees them. He's like, I got to do something here. The disciples look at the crowd and they say, oh, we got a problem. It's late. We can't do anything. There's nothing around us. You need to send them away, Jesus. You need to scatter the sheep. Why? Because the disciples lived in a world where the scarcity mindset was prevalent for them. A scarcity of hope. How could we do it? They had no imagination. Right? A scarcity mindset thrives on a lack of imagination. They saw all these people and they thought, well, nothing. We can't do anything. This is hopeless. Send them away. We'll pick this up at a later date. This isn't our responsibility, Jesus. Let them go. Go. It's deserted. The hour's late. We don't have time for this. I'm not making dinner for all these people, Jesus. There's 5,000. I don't know if you've ever been in a crowd of 5,000 people. It's a lot of mouths to feed. The disciples are they weren't being irrational. But they didn't have the compassion and the imagination of Jesus. And Jesus says to them, well, you give them something to eat. Duh. You give them something to eat. And they said to him, oh, Jesus. They might have even said, Jesus Christ. That joke just came to me in the spot. I feel like we haven't had enough people leave recently, so I thought I'd just give you that little gift. They said, Jesus, what we're going to go buy? You got 200 denarii in your pocket there, Jesus? Which, by the way, that was about 6 months worth of pay. Like, what do you got? You've been saving up? You've been doing something on the side we don't know about? To get all this bread and give them something to eat? In the midst of their lack of imagination, I love that Jesus invites them into participation, not observation. They were great at observing. A lot of people, no food. Time to go. Right? But Jesus says, no, let's participate. You give them something to eat. He didn't say you feed them. He said you give them something to eat, which tells me that they had food. So you got to read this story a little more carefully. They had food. Jesus says, you give them something to eat. What they're saying is, we don't have enough for them and me. That's what they believed. What are we going to do? Well, you give them something to eat. Give them some of yours. And Jesus says to them this question, how many loaves have you? Go and see. How many loaves have you? Go and see. So Jesus knows there's food out there. How many do you have? And the story says they went out and they found 5 and 2 fish. 5 and 2 fish. 5,000 people. Can we first of all say, story? First of all, how are you going to go through a crowd of 5,000 people that quick? Find out what you have. No. So they're like, going around, seeing what they got. One version of this in the gospel, it's a little boy who has 5 loaves and 2 fish. Not in Mark, though. Mark can't be bothered with those kinds of details in his storytelling. Like, we got 5 loaves and 2 fish. They could have just gone to the disciples together and been like, the 12 of us, the 7 of us, the 15 of us, whatever. We got 5 loaves and 2 fish. This is what we have. And I'm sure they came and said, this is all we got. And Jesus says, okay. Get all the people and sit them down in groups on the green grass. I love he'll tell us the grass was green, but not where the 5 loaves and 2 fish came from. This is the guy, Mark. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s, okay? So what do we see Jesus doing? He's starting to make things a little more manageable. You get into a group of 50, you can kind of see the people around. You can't hide necessarily, even a group of 100. So they're sitting down. So the disciples are going, and then what's fascinating is hope starts to take shape when people gathered what they could offer each other, right? So they gathered in these small groups, and what we're going to see, hope starts to take shape. And so Jesus does what? He takes then the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He looked up to heaven. He blessed and broke the loaves, and he gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and he divided the 2 fish among them. Here's what's fascinating. What we're going to see is what was placed in the loving hands of Jesus, of love, was multiplied through community. He multiplies it. He blesses it. He breaks it. He sets it before the people. He offers an example of generosity. This is what we have, and what we have, we give to you. Right? Jesus would say these same words in the Last Supper. Right? He would take and he would break the bread. Right? And he would offer it. So he takes what they have, what little they have, he breaks it before them in groups of 50, 100. He offers it as if to say, you do the same. You do the same. And what does it say? All ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. And those who had eaten the loaves numbered 5,000 men. And so as you've heard, many would say there's far more than 5,000 people in this story wanting us to know. I don't believe, okay, this is just me. You can believe whatever you want, and I will love you, okay? Will you love me if I don't believe like you? I mean, it's been 6 years, people. 6 long years, okay? Man, tough crowd. Okay. I don't believe that loaves and fish magically appeared. I just don't believe it. Sorry, it's not in me. I don't believe it. Because I think the greater miracle, and what I think I see happening is true when we look at actual social science, that research on folks that are struggling with poverty and how generous they are with each other. That what Jesus modeled was, here's how we do this thing called community. You bring what you have and you share. And what we are surprised with is that there's plenty for everybody. That's what the story, I think, is telling us. That a generous spirit, a generous heart, when we bring what we have, when we gather in ways in which we can see people eye to eye, that they're not just a crowd, but I can look you in the eye and I can see your need. How am I going to eat my fish and my loaves when you don't have any? How am I going to do that? And there's this beautiful moment where hope goes parabolic with generosity. That all these people that the disciples couldn't imagine being able to be fed, that the miracle was right there. It just needed a catalyst. It just needed someone willing to say, here's what we have. Here's what we have. Here's what I have. Here's what I'm offering. And that's what hope is like. What hope I have, I offer to you in those moments where you're feeling hungry, where you forgot your lunch, and I brought mine. And see, hope goes farther when it is shared in the community. Hope goes farther when it is shared in the community. Hope research tells us that people endure longer when they feel connected. Think of the bread and the loaves in this story as hope. How much hope do you have? Well, I've got 5 loaves and 2 fish worth of hope. But we got 5,000 people here, all of which who are oppressed, all of which who are struggling financially, all of which who maybe are going to eat 1 meal a day, 1 meal every other day, people who the religious system has rejected. All of it's right there. Well, let's just give our hope and see what happens. Let's break everybody up into groups. And let's see if we can't give each other hope. See, believe it or not, like this is the principle. See, I don't have a good script today. All right, so I'm going to go off. All right, so listen. I'm not a proponent. I don't think you need to be in a small group, okay? I don't. I don't. I don't think you have to be in a small group. For some of you, like you just, that's like what I just said is like shaking the foundations of your faith. Because you grow up in an environment that was like, if you're not in a small group, you're probably at least going to purgatory. Right? Like, but here's the thing. I do believe there's a power in a small group. Now, where that small group is, whatever. If it's a church small group, if it's a small group of people that you get together and play the xylophone with. But if you're sharing your life, if you're digging in kind of deep, like hope flourishes in those spaces. Church that I pastored one time, we called them hope groups. That's what we called our small groups. Because it was just about coming together. It wasn't about, it wasn't about reading a book or reading the Bible or anything. It was just about bringing hope to one another, sharing our lives. There's something powerful about that. Hope is sustained in shared meaning. It's not just in our internal beliefs, what you believe about this story or what I believe about this story. No, it's when we find our meaning together, when we make meaning out of the difficulties of our lives, when we ascribe meaning, not when we find meaning, because I don't know that meaning exists without our intentional creation of it. Right? When we trust that there is restoration. It's powerful in that group. Why is that? Because isolation, away from a group, away from that group of 50 or 100, right? Like isolation amplifies fear. It amplifies the fear, right? So believe it or not, they were in a crowd of 5,000. but they weren't connected, right? It was just a crowd. It was just a crowd that you're a part of. And in that crowd, there's this fear. The disciples felt it. We're not going to have enough food. People are going to be hungry. They're going to get angry. But what happens? Community distributes the weight. Community distributes the weight of the moment. I need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer with me? I will call on you. I need a volunteer who just, okay, right here, come, yes, come join me. Give her a great big hand. Love it. Oh, wait, you have a tattoo. You're going to need to go. We can't. What is your tattoo, first of all?
It's in honor of my nephew who died.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. Yeah, Lucky 17. Beautiful. Okay, I'm just too much of a wimp. It's not a moral issue for me. It's a courage issue. Okay, come on over here in the light. Tell everybody your name.
Carol.
Carol. Carol, I need you to do me a favor, okay? I need you to take this bag right here, okay? Mm-hmm. And I just want you to hold it out. Hold it out and just hold it up, okay? Just hold it there, all right? I've got about 15 minutes left in this sermon, okay? Now, what I need is for you, if you start to see, it was Carol, right?
Yes.
If you start to see Carol sweating a little bit, faltering a little bit, I just need you to come up and help hold this bag up, okay? I'm going to call on you. And Carol, you're always welcome to ask for help if you want to, but you don't have to. Please. Carol says, please, so we're coming. Okay, good. So everybody finds.
Oh, we got it. You were holding a lot of weight.
There we go. Yeah, come on, get in there.
Yeah.
Everybody's got some hands to help. I love it. Very good. All right, give them all a great big hand. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, everyone. I know. I handed it to Carol, and I expected it to fall to the ground because I was like crying holding it. And she's like, I was like, this illustration is not going to work. It's not going to work. I found the strongest Carol in the world. Just shows up. Okay, I don't know if you know it or not, but when you go through things in life, hope is heavy. Hope is heavy. And it can feel unbearable to try and imagine a different future. And when we isolate ourselves, when we don't participate in a life-giving community, it's just like holding this weight, and eventually it's not going to happen. But what happens, right? What feels unbearable becomes completely possible and very easy together. Right? Like all of a sudden you got 8, 9, 10 people, each kind of just holding this. They could have stayed there for days. But you all want to go have lunch, right? I mean, like it becomes very bearable. And shared rituals, right? Like when we gather together and we do the simplest of things, it's like us coming together and just lifting up the hope, right? When someone's hope bag is heavy and ours is light because everything is going good, because I'm a white, heterosexual, well-educated Christian male, like hope is easy for me. Right? Like my spiritual gift, my heritage is colonizing. I mean, I do it without even knowing it. Right? Like, so for me to come alongside someone who is not in my positionality in life, where hope is a different experience, right? I can come up and because for me it's easy to hope, I can let you borrow some of mine. I can let you borrow some of that. I can leverage that privilege that makes hope easier for me in a world that is governed by whiteness. Like I can make that burden a little lighter, and I can actually come to understand that burden better. Why? Because proximity is power. When I can get proximate to the difficulty of holding up that hope. And so when we gather together, just even as a church, our shared rituals, they have meaning. When we eat together, when we gather together, when we sing together, when we just show up together, there's power in that. When you sing, you're not just singing for yourself. Thank God, because a lot of you are terrible singers. But you're singing for the people around you who don't have it in them to sing because it's just too difficult right now to hope. And so you sing for them. and your voice around them fills the space with hope. That's the power of community. You know, I would get so irritated during COVID for all sorts of reasons, but one of them was like, I would hear all these, like, and some of them were my friends, but all these, like, people in my positions, pastors, religious leaders, like, you need to get back in church. And the reason why they wanted you back in church was because they're like, how are we going to pay the bills, right? I mean, let's just be real honest. Like, the reasons that people were giving to get back into church were just, like, so shallow, and you could see right through them, right? I mean, there's just a lot of fear around it, and I get it, right? I totally get it. But the reality of, like, get back into church, like, being here is wonderful. That's great. I'm glad you're here. If you're tuning in, I'm glad you're here. But really, the power of Christian community is not in these moments alone. It's when these moments drive us into that community that you're connected and you see, oh, somebody needs a meal. I can do that. Oh, like somebody needs a ride to the hospital. I can do that. Oh, somebody needs some help with their child. I can do that. Oh, like here's a great one for you, right? Just today, I don't know how this resolved itself, but one of our volunteers who works in our disability inclusion room had to call out today. And we have a policy that we always have to have 2 volunteers anytime we're working with kids, right? So here's our most vulnerable families, okay? Our families who have kiddos with disabilities. And I think we had to close the disability room today because we only had 1 volunteer. And I get it, like I'm not trying to guilt you because you didn't know that, right? Now you know it, so I will guilt you if it happens again. But you know, the good news is you're off the hook this time, right? Okay? But like, here's the thing, right? Like there is a population of folks who, many of us in the room, like we don't really understand how heavy hope is for a family who's dealing with like little kiddos with disabilities and lack of support. And when church is like this one space where I know that my kiddo's going to be cared for and I'm not going to show up and they're not going to tell me how bad or how difficult it was. And that got taken away today. Not because of anybody's fault, but because of life, right? But how we actually lift that burden is like we make ourselves available to be an alternate. To say, hey, put me on the list. Like, I'm not an expert at disability inclusion, but if there is somebody who's a regular, I could come and like sit alongside and I can get through my uncomfortableness. How many of y'all, raise your hand up nice and high, you would be honest and say, you know, volunteering in a room with folks with disabilities would be difficult for me because I've never really been around that. Raise your hand. It's okay. Like, why are we ashamed of that? Like, put your hand back up. Put your hand back up. It'd be hard. That's fair. I love it. Let's just be honest about that. But here's the thing, right? Like, hope demands courage. It demands generosity. So, like, some of us in the room, like, right now, you don't need to think about it. Just on the back of your Connect card, you need to say, hey, like, make me an alternate. Like, put me on the list. I'll come and observe one time and check it out, and then I'll be present when there is an issue. Like, don't put me down for regular volunteer. That's too much right now, right? That's fair. But hey, I don't want a family to not be able to come to church because of that. Because truth is, like, they might need to be in here more than you. I know that's a shocker that you're not the center of the world. I am, okay? So let's get that down first. No. But this is like why community is powerful. Like, sometimes we just wouldn't know how to carry hope with people. And the funny thing is, like, when we do this, it's not just a spiritual act, it's actually a neurological stabilizing force. When we bring our hope, when we gather in community, because when we're doing this, we're reminding our body and other bodies, we're not alone in this. We're not alone in this. And so in your everyday normal life, to show up in community, what does that look like? What does that mean? Well, let me just make it super, like, I think, kind of simple but difficult. Like, what if hope looked like just letting someone sit with you? Like, what if you actually just like reached out to someone in your world and said, could you come over and just sit with me and watch a movie or hang out? And I don't want to talk, I just don't want to be alone. Like, what happens if you said that? Can I talk to like the men in the room? And I generally don't do like gendered stuff because it's complex and complicated, but like traditionally speaking, men have grown up in a culture that has produced a lot of toxic masculinity. And I bet you there's some of you in the room who would say, like, I've actually never, ever said I don't want to be alone right now, out loud to someone. Not just men, it happens to everybody. Statistically speaking, the data would tell us it happens in a disproportionate number with men. I remember when I was working in New England and traveling a lot, and I was probably trying to be successful. I don't know if I was successful at being successful, but I was trying to. And a mentor gave me this book on emotional health. It's like, something's wrong when somebody hands you a book on emotional, you know what I mean? Like, I was emotionally healthy enough to know that, right? And as I read this book, I realized, there are other emotions besides anger. There's a whole vocabulary. I don't know if you know this or not. And I remember for the first time when I expressed to my spouse an emotion that I was feeling other than anger, when I said that hurt my feelings, or when I even would say that to my kids, or to learn that what I'm actually feeling is not anger, but hurt. What I'm actually feeling is fear, not anger, right? Like learning to parse that out. But that happens when we just kind of let people in a little bit and kind of lean into this vulnerability. Maybe hope just looks like sharing what you actually have, even if it's small. Like our example of the disability inclusion room. Maybe it's just small. I can be a substitute. Maybe it's volunteering somewhere in the community once a month. The broader community. It doesn't have to be Crossroads Church. I hope that everybody volunteers somewhere here. Because how we flourish is when we give of ourselves. But even no matter how much, sometimes we feel like it's just a little bit. But if we just lay it out there, it's an inspiration to everybody who just gives a little bit. I mean, this is true with all kinds of things in community. Nonprofits exist because everybody gives a little, whether it's volunteering or giving financially. It's just bringing what we have. Maybe hope looks like showing up in community when it'd be easier to isolate. And I bet you some of you are here today, you're tuning in online, and there was a part of you that was like, I don't even want to, I just can't. It's just too overwhelming, the world is too overwhelming, it's easier to isolate, and just finding that courage to be present. And for those of us in the room who in this moment, your identity isn't being challenged as legal, for some of us in the room whose way of existing and loving is not being challenged as in some way ungodly, and hope is easy for you or easy for us, all the more important that we're present to stand with those who it's not, to cry with those who are crying, to weep with those who weep. This is the difficult peacemaking path of Jesus. And when we remember that we're never meant to carry hope alone, you're never meant to carry hope alone. When I remember that you aren't supposed to do this by yourself, that I'm not supposed to do this by myself. When I remember that you're not meant to figure it out by yourself and I'm not meant to figure it out by myself. When I remember that you're not meant to survive by yourself. You're not meant to survive on just what you have. I'm not meant to survive on just what I have. When I remember that what I have when it's shared becomes more than enough for everyone. Statistically speaking, the folks that are way smarter than me, that do all kinds of global research on caloric, how many calories are produced a day in food, right? Food production and manufacturing. We have enough calories being produced every day to feed every person on the world, yet millions of people are still dying from starvation. We don't have a resource problem, we have a distribution problem. We don't have a problem with supply. We have a problem with honoring the humanity of every person. We have a selfish problem, I have it. But when we remember that, all of a sudden, what feels heavy alone can become lighter together. That I don't ever have to be taken aback by someone who needs help. That I don't ever have to feel ashamed for needing help. Because what feels impossible in isolation becomes possible in community. And hope doesn't diminish when it's given away, it multiplies. Believe it or not, if you can learn to get comfortable with someone else's hopelessness, with someone else's pain, your hope will not diminish. Your view of the world will not diminish. It will actually expand. Right? We have to learn to be okay with other people's suffering and to be okay to be in their presence and to know, I can't fix it, I can't solve every problem, but I can just be present and I can do what I can do. Because we don't lose strength by inviting others in, we discover it. That's why our scriptures tell us that it's in my weakness that love is made strong. It's in my weakness that God is made strong. It's when I share my weakness with you, I'm made strong because you are the image of God. Like these don't have to be like ethereal, otherworldly principles, right? When my weakness is known to you, I'm made strong. When you respond, when I respond, because strength is multiplied when we hope in community. And so we finish this series with this idea that the miracle is not in just when we receive hope, but it's actually when we share hope. Like that's the miracle. And hope takes full form, finds its fullest expression, lasts the longest when it's shared. And I want to invite you to be a person who shares your hope. And I want to invite you to be a person who brings out these moments in your own life when you're feeling a lack of hope, and to let others hope with you and for you and beside you. So as we come to the communion tables today, what is it that God's inviting you into? I hope that you feel a sense of like a commitment to some form of intentional community in your life. Whether that is the intentional community of a church, whether that is the intentional community of a book club, a neighborhood group, a hobby, whatever it might be, but you can share your values with people. And it's a it's a place where people leverage the gathering point to share the burden of life, right? And that's really the idea, is when we produce like a small group to participate in, I hope that the content of that group is far less important than the context of that group. And so maybe that's invitation from the Spirit to just, who are the people in your life? Where can you borrow hope? Maybe you're here, maybe you're tuning in, you're listening to this on demand, and hope feels very heavy for you right now. There's circumstances in your life, there's things that are going on, you go, I don't know. Maybe there's this invitation to just talk to a friend openly, honestly, and here's what I would just encourage you, like let your friend know, whoever you talk to, you don't have to solve this. You can't solve it. But your presence and your listening is crucial to me right now. Just your care. And so just talk to a friend about it. Talk to someone. I want to encourage you, if you're feeling a lack of hope in your own spiritual growth and spiritual life, maybe you've been a part of this Christian tradition and you look around and you don't know what is happening. And it just feels like Jesus is being hijacked. Maybe you're feeling unmoored, disconnected, not quite sure, hanging on by a thread. I want to encourage you to come out Friday evening to our Good Friday experience, Who Do You Say That I Am?, where we kind of take this journey of deconstruction, where Jesus himself like got to a place in the story where he was like, what the heck, God? Like, why have you forsaken me? What the heck? And maybe there is an idea of God that needs to die so that a more beautiful one can be resurrected. And so you're invited. Our communion song today says, let us be the church. And I think that really is this idea of let us be this space of hope for one another. I mean, we have 20-foot by 20-foot signs in our foyer that say hope is here, right? I mean, let's live that out. Let's be that space. Let's be that place. To be the church, to be called out ones, humble enough to ask for help, generous enough to hope for others, committed to mercy, love, and grace, things that our current world seems to think of as liabilities that we know are the hope for humanity. And so as we sing this song, the body of Christ broken for you, the blood of Christ shed for you, every person in this space is invited to the table. There is no document to sign. There is no class to go to. There is no belief to hold. There's just the desire to love and be loved. And in this moment, experience that. The body of Christ broken for you, the blood of Christ shed for you.